This is Horror Sucks, the podcast where we watch terrible horror movies so you don't have to.
I'm Carter Rhodes, and I think I just forgot what we practiced for our intro.
I'm Ashley Atkins, and I mixed it up on Carter this week.
Yeah, you have no idea how alarming it was for Ashley to pause right there and look at me. It made me...
Well, last week he was like, I'm gonna go first.
Yeah, as a joke. Well, I did actually think about saying, and I'm going first again this week.
Joke's on you, I made you go first.
That was good. I didn't expect it. That was really good. So, this week we are doing Cabin in the Woods. Ash and I have really just been emotionally breaking under the weight of watching 13 Friday the 13th movies. Coming up, we're going to watch The Halloween Ends. And looks like there's only about one or two good movies on our horizon, so we really just needed to treat ourselves. I'm not going to count Hocus Pocus 2. It might be good, but it's going to be arguably horror.
The cameo will make it good.
You're right.
But arguably, it's not horror. I will consent to that, but that doesn't mean we're not watching it.
Yeah, I know. The only movie I'm really looking forward to is Smile.
Oh, I am so looking forward. Well, I think we also might do Barbarian on the horizon.
I'm not really looking forward to it.
Listen, the reviews are telling me that it's a really good movie.
Yeah, and people constantly say horror movies are better than they are. Do you have any idea how many people have told me that Halloween, the newer Halloween movies are like the revival of the franchise? It's garbage.
It's absolute garbage. I will agree with that, but it's got like a 98% IMDb rating.
First of all, I just deeply don't care what critics have to say about movies. Second of all...
No, sorry, it's a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes.
And I definitely don't care what non-critics have to say about movies. So...
The audience score is a 73. Listen, I'm looking forward to it. I haven't even watched the trailer for it. The reviews just look good and gives me hope. I do believe that my hopes and dreams will be crushed as they are every single week.
Mm-hmm.
Except
not
for
this week.
This week. Tying it back in. So, to treat ourselves, we watched The Most Wonderful Movie.
Mm-hmm. Cabin in the Woods is one of my all-time favorite movies. It has... We'll get into it more, but it's that perfect blend of making fun of horror while still being a good horror movie.
Honest to God, Carter described it and told me how, it subverses a lot of the characters and whatnot. But he fully did not prepare me for, one, what a great movie it was. Yeah. Two, I had different expectations going in, and I was just absolutely shocked.
Mm-hmm. So just to tell you guys how we do this podcast, how we perform it, we'll give you the plot of the movie in case you haven't seen it. There will be spoilers, and let me tell you right now, Cabin in the Woods is a really good movie. You should seriously consider not watching this, or not listening to this podcast and watching that movie.
I agree.
Yeah. But we will give you the plot. Granted, the plot's not so... There's not really a twist, I don't think.
No, they pretty much tell you in the beginning. Mm-hmm. I might give the plot with a little twist because I think that's more interesting, but they're very upfront.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't really matter how you tell the story. After that, we're going to just give you some fun facts about the movie and its cast. There's so many fun facts about this movie, I don't even get into the cast whatsoever.
Great.
Then we will get into our favorite segment, The Good, the Bad, and the Spooky, where we talk about what we liked, what we didn't like, and what we found spooky about the movie. And then we will wrap things up. If there's time, we'll tell you what movie we're watching next. Spoiler alert, I'm not going to be here. I'm going on a business trip, so we're bringing in another ringer to... I don't think I used that right, but we're bringing someone else in to replace me.
We'll talk about it at the end of the podcast.
Bringing in a ringer is when you bring in a professional for an amateur thing, right?
Right.
Yeah, so that doesn't make sense. But we're bringing in a backup. How about that?
I will be joined by a guest next week.
Yep. We're not famous enough that you might know them, but...
Definitely not. But that being said...
It's just people we know in our day-to-day life. So...
Anyways.
Why don't you tell us about the plot, Ashley?
Awesome. So, Cabin in the Woods... It basically stripped down this group of friends who all kind of have a role in terms of classic horror movies, go to one of their cousins' cabins that's located deep in the woods.
To clarify, by role, she means like there's the jock, the stoner,
the dumb blonde,
yeah,
the virgin,
and then
the nerd.
Yeah. But I will say that they blend those roles pretty well. We'll explain once she finishes the plot.
So while they're at the cabin, they find this creepy basement full of weird, I wouldn't say weird, full of eclectic things that each one of them kind of becomes engrossed in one, but then...
Thousands. The basement is full of these items.
Yes. And we kind of take a moment to pause as they each consider a different item. And then Dana, who is the virgin, air quotes.
The movie opens with explaining that she slept with her college professor.
Yeah. She starts reading the diary of the previous owners of the cabin and says
From 1903.
Yes. And says a Latin spell that basically brings them back to life. And then the zombies basically pick them off one by one.
They're described as murder hillbilly zombies, I believe.
Yes. So while that is happening, we actually know that this is a trap. This is a plan. It's not just a spooky cabin slasher like I thought it was going to be. It's actually a devised agency plot. Are they a government agency? I have no idea.
It's some kind of sinister organization that is orchestrating this for the purposes of pleasing the quote-unquote old gods.
Yes, orchestrated is a great word. So we see these two guys, they're the masters of the game, and they have these simulations, I guess, and not even simulation, I don't know, traps, I guess, all over the world. And
they're running these sacrifices all over the world.
Sacrifices, yes. And they're the last ones standing because all the rest have failed.
Each country, not literally every country, but various countries across the world are running these. There's the US, they mentioned Sweden, Japan, Argentina.
Yeah, we get a wide view of a bunch of cameras showing how they all failed. And this is basically their last hope to keep the ancient ones happy, satisfied, I guess, or under control.
Slumbering.
Slumbering. So, but it's not working. They're too smart. And one of the characters, the stoner, Martin, he's great. He's such a good comic relief. He starts to figure it out. And what we realize, though, is that each character was not actually what they were supposed to. They were kind of altered to fit in these roles that have been prescribed.
Drugged.
Yeah, drugged. For example, the dumb blonde is actually a pre-med major, and in the hair dye, there's a chemical to make her less smart. For the jock, there's actually a mist that makes him like alpha male qualities, because at one point he's like, oh, we all need to stay together, blah blah blah, and they're like, that's not gonna work, and this mist comes out. He's like, no, that's wrong, we should split up.
Then Martin's the only one who isn't drugged because they put it in his weed and he's smoking a stash they didn't find.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah, or that or interfered with the drug. But
I think the way they explained it was that the weed interfered with the drug, because they did say they laced it, and he was like, it didn't work on him.
It was a lot of weed, so
yes,
they knew ahead of time, and it still wasn't strong enough.
Yeah, I think they might have explained it that he smoked too much, and that's why it didn't work. I don't know. But so he starts to figure it out that they're in the simulation. We think he dies. Turns out he didn't. And they slowly get picked off one by one. And Dana, the virgin, is the last one. They're so happy because they don't actually have to kill the virgin. If she dies, she dies. If she doesn't, she doesn't. And turns out Martin's alive. And they end up escaping by going to the basement and finding
the base that they were operating out of.
Yes. And as they go into the base, they see all the different monsters that could kill them, and they realized
each one corresponding to a different item
that they were all looking at, and they realized that they chose how they were going to die based on what they were looking at in the basement. And eventually they let all the monsters free and they attack everyone on the base, and Dana and Martin make their way to, I don't know, the temple, I guess.
Yeah, there's it's like an underground
the
base,
ritual
but when you get deep
area?
enough, it really does look like a temple.
Yeah, and as they all were dying, we saw that they flipped a lever and their blood drained into this sort of temple, into these.
It's just a ritual, basically.
So they end up in that area, and the director shows up and is like,
put some respect on her name. Sigourney Weaver as the director shows up.
Sigourney Weaver as the director shows up and says, listen, I got bad news for you. You got to die, basically. And she's like, to Dana, she's like, you got to kill him. I'm so sorry, but this is the way it has to be to keep the gods happy, or keep them not happy, just
sleeping.
keep them sleeping. And she's like, she takes the gun and kind of aims it at him. And then she's like, no. And Martin grabs the gun and
she's attacked by a werewolf from behind.
Oh, you're right.
I think she was going to kill him, but the werewolf got her.
But then she told him she wasn't going to, which yeah. I have thoughts. And then Martin's like, no, let them wake up. Like, if the world is this bad, like, they deserve to be awakened. And then they outlive the ritual, and then the gods wake up, and that's pretty much it.
The giant arm reaches up through the ground as the gods rise. So, I don't know if we explained it, but that's supposed to represent a horror movie.
Yeah.
Is people demand that they follow these arbitrary tropes, which differ depending on the region. If you look at Japan, it's a lot more of like a spiritual thing. I'm going to get into that in my facts.
I don't know if that was just because, like, they chose the spirit thing versus they chose the zombies.
Well,
because
I don't think it followed. I think the purpose of it is it didn't follow an exact copy of this ritual around the world.
Yeah.
I think each one of them had to operate to their culture, basically.
Okay, that makes sense. I see what you're saying.
And I'm going to get into that in a little bit more detail.
Oh, I forgot to mention one thing. They did have a bet over what they would choose from, and I thought that was...
We're going to get to that. That was a really good part of the movie.
All right.
So this movie
Take us away.
Yes, this movie is a 2011 horror comedy directed by Drew Goddard. It was his directorial debut, and since he's really only gone on to direct Bad Times at the El Royale. I don't know why I said really. That's the only other movie he's directed. He's a very successful writer. Him and Joss Whedon teamed up and wrote, well, Joss Whedon, I'm pretty sure, wrote all of Buffy, but Drew Goddard wrote quite a few episodes of it. And
I was going to say, the box says from the creators of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Did I just say slaver?
You did say slaver. We'll cut it out. Oh, wait, yeah, you're in charge here. You can cut it out if you want. So, movie is produced and partially written by Joss Whedon. It stars Kristen Connolly, Chris Hemsworth, Anna Hutchinson, Fran Kranz, and Jesse Williams. It also stars Bradley Whitford, who you might know as Jake Peralta's dad in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and the dad from Get Out. He's one of my favorite actors because he's just quietly like this horror icon. He like just manages to sneak on every single one of the best horror movies in recent times. So Martin, the stoner, these facts are going to go on a while. Let me warn you ahead of time.
All right, let me grab a pillow.
Yeah. So Martin, the stoner, has this collapsible bong which he can turn into a coffee mug, a travel coffee mug, that was fully functioning, it was real, and it cost him $5,000 to make.
Why?
It's not cheap to make a fully functioning bong that collapses into a believable travel mug.
I guess.
The movie's opening, which is just the two puppeteer guys just having general office talk about their kids as they get coffee, It was intentional. It was meant by Drew Goddard and Joss Whedon to confuse the audience, to make them think they walked in to see the wrong movie. So there's a shot in which all the creatures are in their elevator cells, and you can briefly see a tank, a witch, a boomer, and a hunter, who are 4 types of infected from the video game Left 4 Dead. And that cameo was supposed to combine with, like, the Cabin in the Woods level being released, but then MGM went bankrupt and they had to cancel that. Immediately after they released the movie, the first question the director was asked was, is there going to be a sequel? And he said, have you seen the movie? The world ends.
Okay, I am so happy. This is the first good movie that realizes, hey, we can't make a freaking sequel.
Yes.
And we're not going to try to. And we're not going to try and make a prequel. If they make a prequel, I swear to God. To be honest, I think it's the only movie that's worth making a prequel for.
It might be interesting to see the different countries do their thing.
Yes, but I really love the fact that they made it and was like, this is what it is. That's the end.
Mm-hmm. So during the lake scene where all the characters jump in the lake, there's only one character who doesn't go in, and it's Marty, the stoner. He stays fully clothed, and the reason for that is Fran Kranz is noticeably in as good shape or better than Chris Hemsworth and Jesse Williams.
But he's a stoner.
Yeah, so they had to have him wear baggy clothes. They couldn't see how muscular he was.
He had to be very shaggy.
The writers described him as ripped like a muscular Jesus. Which, if you saw his hair and his beard, you really get that. So,
that's pretty funny.
This script was written in 3 days. Joss Whedon and Drew Goddard locked themselves in a hotel room to challenge themselves, and they wrote it in most of a weekend.
Okay.
A lot of the inspiration of this movie came from the fact that Drew Goddard grew up in Los Alamos, New Mexico, and it was a place that was filled with nuclear scientists and physicists just going about their business, living ordinary lives, even though they were developing nuclear weapons that could destroy the world. That fits thematically. I see the connection.
I like it.
The failed rituals, we briefly see them on the screens.
Mm-hmm.
They are references to various classic movies. Kyoto Ritual is clearly a reference to The Ring. Buenos Aires seems to be referencing King Kong. Stockholm seems to be referencing The Thing. And Madrid appears to be referencing Dracula.
I noticed that with Stockholm and with Kyoto. I didn't really pay attention to the other two.
I couldn't really place where they were from, but I could tell that they were some kind of a movie.
I thought it was creative.
There's one scene in which a character, during like the breakdown of the base when there's monsters everywhere, I don't know if Ashley mentioned it actually, when they make it to the base as a survival tactic, as they panic, they hit the like purge all button on the elevators, and it releases all the monsters into the base. And so pretty much everyone dies. So in one scene, it's showing the security camera footage of people getting attacked, and one guy's holding up a sign. And Drew Goddard tried really hard to make that sign readable, but it just wasn't possible. But he did explain what that sign said. A character was holding up an unreadable sign to the camera, and it said, "Help me, I'm in the utility closet. A dragon bat has my scent. I'm Ronald the intern."
Oh my God!
He tried really hard to get that in frame, but he just couldn't.
That's so funny.
So at one point, the whiteboard, and I'm going to go into a lot of detail on this, the whiteboard lists a whole bunch of movies.
Oh, please tell me all of them.
Don't worry, I will. So the betting pool they have a whiteboard up. And in that whiteboard, they list all the possible monsters they could have picked from. And one of them is just called Kevin. And that's a tribute to the Elijah Wood character of the same name from the movie Sin City.
I've never seen Sin City.
There's a creature that's clearly a reference to Hellraiser.
Yes.
And they credit him in the credits as Fornicus, Lord of Bondage and Pain.
Oh, these are amazing.
There's a scene in which Kurt asks Jules about these textbooks, and he's like, "Who gave you these? Who taught you about these?" And she goes, "I learned it from you." That's a reference to a 1987 anti-drug PSA. I got that. I didn't think it was that entertaining, but I thought maybe you didn't know about it.
I had to know it was a reference to something. I didn't really know what it was.
I've just heard that joke enough that I didn't find it funny.
It was kind of lame.
Yeah, it is.
I felt like there could have been a better joke there. but I appreciate the effort.
Yeah, because it was a really funny movie. We're gonna get into it.
Yeah.
So Fran Kranz received extensive prop and behavior training in order to really capture Marty. He got a 2-hour joint rolling session and a separate bong lighting session from expert consultants known as Ashley Atkins.
And Carter Rhodes.
Yeah.
I was going to say, we don't even see him actually rolling a joint.
Yeah. Well, no, we do.
No, because he folds it and he puts the weed in, but then it cuts away and then he's holding a perfectly rolled joint.
He's like licking it, but we never actually see him roll it. That's true.
Yeah.
So in addition to that, you also see a bunch of his other marijuana paraphernalia. There's his stash, his secret stash, a pipe, a tulip joint, which honest to God, I'll swear in front of a grand jury, I don't know what that is. He would keep a joint in like the back of his pants. And they even designed a specific brand of rolling papers for the movie called Smiling Buddha brand. So Drew Goddard was actually brought up Catholic, and he was extremely uncomfortable during Anna Hutchinson's nude scene. But he says that Hutchinson was really professional and comforted him by telling him that it's really not a big deal for me to take my top off. So that's nice of her. The studio wanted the movie to be in 3D, and Whedon and Goddard threw a fit because they're like, this isn't a parody anymore. You are just making a shitty movie.
So there was one scene where like a hawk kind of flies by, and it definitely looked like it was supposed to be 3D.
So the camper that the characters drive to the cabin in is a reference to The Hills Have Eyes. That one I didn't do any research on. I just took for IMDb's word. I don't know.
I haven't seen
if it's literally just a camper and some dude goes, ooh, it's like Hills Have Eyes, or if it's the same model or something.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either. Interestingly, none of the scenes with Jules and Kurt in the woods were shot outdoors.
Huh.
Which makes sense, because even in the context of the movie, they had control over the heat, the lights, the wind, stuff like that. So it makes sense that...
It does make sense.
That stuff they would have to control in a filming studio. Drew Goddard originally wanted Bruce Campbell to play the director, but since Bruce Campbell couldn't make it, they went with Sigourney Weaver. That would have been... I love Sigourney Weaver, but man, that would have been perfect, is Bruce Campbell.
Who is Bruce Campbell?
Ash from Evil Dead.
Ooh.
Right?
Oh, that's a toss-up.
Yeah, it's really tough. I would have gone with Bruce Campbell just because the whole movie is like... Even the title is a reference to Evil Dead.
Yeah. I mean, the reference is in your face. Like,
yeah, it would have been nice to then get hit again with that.
That would have been a really nice bookend close. Be like, here's a little kiss on the head.
Yeah.
Like,
but I mean, don't get me wrong. I loved Sigourney Weaver showing up.
It was still good.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, ooh.
So, 1 year after this movie was made, Chris Hemsworth was in Thor, and from then on out, his career has been just A-list.
Good for him.
But him and Joss Whedon would go on to work together again in The Avengers.
Oh,
yeah.
So I have to tell you, I do have to interrupt you.
Yes.
Every time you've explained this movie to me, you keep saying Chris Hemsworth, and I'm like, okay, I know who Chris Hemsworth is, but... I gotta tell you, every time I've pictured it in my head, it has been Chris Evans. And I wasn't mad watching it, but I was like, I'm such an idiot.
When's Chris Evans gonna show up?
No, as soon as I saw Chris Hemsworth, I was like, I'm so stupid. But also...
Well, that's funny, because all of my comments about it work is like, I was telling Ashley, I'm like, yeah, it's perfect, because, Chris Hemsworth is, kind of like a jock dude. That's all the characters he plays, so it fits so well. It totally works if you're picturing Chris Evans. I'm like, and then he went on to be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and Ashley's like, wow.
Okay, but I also have another fun thing.
And he was Johnny Storm.
I have another funny thing to say too. So right before watching this, my dad was watching Thor Love and Thunder, and I came in and I was like, hey, want to watch Cabin in the Woods after this? And he's like, yes, and I kind of walked off. And then as I started to play it, my dad walked off, and as he walked back in the room, he goes, oh my God, is that Thor?
What an interesting double feature that must have been. Because they're both kind of funny. I haven't seen Thor, but from what I can pick up, it seems like a humorous movie.
I think it's supposed to be.
That kind of teases the superhero genre just a little bit.
Honestly, I think it is a good double feature. I didn't really watch Thor because I came in like more than halfway through. Mm-hmm. But it was a good tie-in.
That's funny.
Continue.
So there's one scene in which Hadley, who is either played by Bradley Whitford or the other old dude, he says that there hasn't been any problems since the glitch in 98. And I was curious about that, so I looked it up. And apparently that's a reference to the fact that in 1998, the number one horror film was Halloween H2O, 20 years later, in which the final girl definitively kills the slasher. Oh. She kills Michael Myers in it.
And yet.
So, yeah. Well, to be fair, in the defense of the new ones, they say, yeah, none of that was canon.
Yeah. I know. I'm kidding. That's pretty good time. Dang. This movie is so full of references.
It's a movie made by people who love horror, and it shows.
Honest to God, if we ever made a horror movie, it would be like this.
Yeah, I too wish that if we made a horror movie, it would be one of the best horror movies ever.
God, I hate you.
Well, I'm agreeing with you. So, according to Drew Goddard, the scene that tested the highest with audiences was the merman sequence.
Oh my God, I have so many.
Which, to be fair, had such great build-up. Like, they couldn't have elaborated on it.
It was so perfect.
Yeah, we'll explain that later. I have the merman written down, don't worry.
Me too.
So, the body count of this movie depicted is 69, but I believe that it has the highest, I didn't double check this, but I believe it has the highest implied body count of all time, with 6,873,741,054
I don't think we need to fact check that.
That was the world's population in 2009, which is when the film was made, and the world ended.
That. I hate
the end of the movie.
for bringing that up.
So the only movie that could possibly rival that is a movie that takes place after 2009 that also has the world being destroyed. Oh, you know what? Probably Star Wars. They blow up so many planets.
Well, yeah, but you said horror movie.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not quoting anyone on that. That's just me speculating. Anyway, during the rampage with the monsters, one of the monsters you can briefly see is a Reaver, who is a member of the fearsome tribe from Joss Whedon's TV show Firefly. Yeah. So, if you look very closely, when they first released the monsters, when the elevators open, one of the creatures is a flying purple people eater.
I did not know this.
It sure looked strange to me. So, I'm almost done. When the movie ends, the big hand that comes out of the ground and destroys the cabin is that of the Greek titan Kronos. And then finally, the song that's playing at the celebration when they think that they've killed everyone but Dana and they think that the ritual's complete, the song that's playing is REO Speedwagon's Roll With The Changes. And as it fades to like the security camera and it cuts to the party, the lyrics are saying, if you're tired of the same old story, and by God, if that isn't horror, the same old story over and over. So I think we're ready to talk about The Good.
I think so.
The Good. Dun dun dun.
That was quite the facts, and they were all worth it.
Yeah.
I don't think you could have cut that down. Just to be clear, Carter has 2 pages, single-spaced, 10-point font full of all these facts. And I mean, you just sat through him reading all of them, but like, I feel like the physical representation is needed.
Yeah, there was none that I thought didn't deserve
you couldn't
to be
cut
there.
any of them out. They were all so good. But let's do the good. And I don't think I really wrote everything down. And I know you wrote a lot more than I did, which is great.
Don't worry, you can just piggyback off me like we're getting a joint Christmas present.
So first of all, my first good, all of it. It's phenomenal.
It was a really, really good movie.
Yes.
I want to talk about how funny it was.
Oh my God, it was hilarious.
It really was a good comedy.
Not in a cheesy way. Like, every joke lands pretty well.
And it doesn't undercut the tension. Like, it's funny. Like,
I don't know what your line for today, but I wrote down some good ones. It's mostly Marty.
Yeah,
because he is the comic relief of the movie. That's also part of his role.
But he also acts as the voice of the audience, which isn't something I know that I've seen, is a character be the comic relief and the, like, guys, what's going on character.
It was so good.
Like, there's one where they go downstairs after a game of Truth or Dare, and they're looking at the horror stuff. And he's like, I dare us to go back upstairs?
That was good.
When the guy splits up, he's like, we should split up. And he goes, how does that make sense?
And he also says, he's also super sarcastic, because, like, when he's got his giant bong that transforms into a coffee mug, Kurt, the jog, was like, you're not going to bring that in my van, in my dad's van. And as he's folding up, he's like, what? A giant bong in your father's van? Are you high?
Yeah.
So good.
There was one scene where this guy, the Harbinger, I'll explain him later. He's this old guy at a gas station, and he insults the dude's friend, Marty's friend, and he's like, I've been here since the war. She goes, what war? He goes, you know damn well what war. And Marty goes, could it have been the Blues versus the Grays, brother against brother?
Oh my god. And then, of course, there's my favorite line of the whole movie, which I hope this doesn't spoil it. I'll cut it out if this is the line. What's her face? Dana and... what is his name? Holden. Dana and Holden are making out. And as Marty walks by, kind of annoyed that they're making out, he goes, what was it?
He's got a
husband bulge.
That one's, it's a reference to them. You guys probably won't get that. It's a reference to when they were reading the diary of the hillbillies. She describes, she said, cutting the flesh gives Jebediah a husband's bulge. And then later, they're like making out, and Marty walks by, and he's got a husband's bulge.
My dad was like, ha, that's funny. I was killing myself.
It was good.
It's my favorite line.
So the Harbinger speakerphone scene, he's the guy at the gas station. It's explained that he is an important part of the ritual, which, you know, ties into horror. They need to be warned that this is not a good cabin. Well,
they're given every option not to end up in this scenario from the beginning. You know, they're told not to go. You know, at one point, the two guys, they say, like, as long as they don't touch anything in the basement, like, they're fine. You know? As, you know, there's a non-believer that's like, wait, what the frick?
Yeah, I mean, they are drugged and, like, somewhat mind-controlled, but it is still...
They're very coerced.
Yeah. But anyway, so the Harbinger, his role is to be, like, the warning. He's in a million movies, not as an actor, but his role. In Friday the 13th, he's the bicycle guy who's like, Camp Blood, it's a death curse! By the way, that guy died a couple of years ago. Aww. Rest in peace, yeah. But yeah, so there's a scene where he calls, and they're like, can you take a message? And the guy's like, he's pretty insistent, so they put him on speaker, and he's going on this rant of like, the lambs are going to the slaughterhouse. Am I on speakerphone?
Mordecai, that's his name.
Yeah, Mordecai. He's like, oh shoot, Mordecai, I'm sorry. And he just like taps the table and doesn't do anything.
It was so good.
So he keeps going on the rant. He's like, that was just rude. He's ranting. And he goes, I'm still on speakerphone, aren't I? And Bradley Whitford's like, oh, shoot, Morty, I did it again. I can't believe it. It was like, that line was so funny because it was the ultimate, like, fucking with your coworker joke.
It was really good.
It was just a funny thing to do, entirely separated from the horror that was happening. And that was a lot of what was entertaining about this movie, is just how mundane they were about this murder thing.
They're so relaxed, I guess, is the word.
Yeah. They show, like, in the background, they show there's an intern
Oh my god, the intern.
Yeah, you managed to pick up the fact that this one guy has a crush on this girl, the ballet dancer.
Yeah.
And like she's not interested. It's just like this whole office environment.
It's kind of really enjoyable to see the fact that they're real people, but also friggin' psychopaths.
Yeah. That's why I would like, or not why I'd like to, why I'd be okay seeing a prequel. Is it was an entertaining thing.
I think there's more there. Most of these prequels, there's nothing there. I think this movie could have a good standing for a prequel.
I wouldn't, if someone told me they made a prequel, I wouldn't be like, why?
Yeah, you're right.
There's a scene where that guy was yelling at the TV screen of the girls as they like, the girls from Japan successfully, and they're like 9-year-olds, they successfully turn the ghost spirit into a frog so that they don't have to kill it, but you won't harm them anymore. And it cuts to the guy watching screen, and he just goes, "Fuck you!" He's just yelling at the kids.
Then he goes, "How hard is it to kill 9-year-olds?"
Yeah. There's a scene where they're like, where Chris Hemsworth and Anna Hutchinson go to have sex, and it cuts to the basement, and everyone's just watching.
Anna Hutchinson is the dumb blonde.
Yeah.
I don't know if we explained that.
It just cuts to like a room full of office workers just kind of staring open-mouthed.
Just to be clear, it's not just a room full of office workers. It is a room full of men dressed in white button-up shirts with ties.
Like the Book of Mormon. There were some women in there. There were. I tried
to find a woman in the group and I couldn't.
Oh, you know what? Maybe in that scene.
Yeah,
in the party, it wasn't.
There are women that work in this office. That scene specifically only had men in it. Because then a woman walks in and goes, "God, you guys are pigs."
I see. Yeah, you're right.
Or whatever she said. But anyways.
The merman scene was great. Just every time.
Okay, I think we need to explain the merman scene because it's worth explaining. It's worth giving it its due. I don't know.
Due diligence.
Yeah. Okay. So throughout the movie,
Bradley
Whitford keeps going like, "Oh, they should have chose the merman." Like I'm
never gonna see them use a merman.
It's gonna be so much better. Blah blah. And they really did a decent job of like building it up.
But it was still a joke. Like
right.
Sometimes you can tell when they're building to something. This was just a funny joke they kept using.
I was surprised to see the merman later. So when they release all the monsters, Bradley Whitford, I don't know, he ends up falling to the ground as they break into their area. And you just kind of hear this as this creature's crawling towards him. And I didn't get it. But my dad, I'm replaying the moment I saw it because it's worth it. My dad is sitting on the couch and he goes, "The merman." He was like, "What?" And then all of a sudden the merman appears from the scene and he goes, "Merman." And then it kills him.
Yeah.
But it was honestly really very complete. It was so nice.
And then that and any and all of the slapstick in the movie was fucking hilarious. Like, they a couple times just punched the zombies in the head and knocked them over and ran away. It was really funny.
Genuinely really good.
So probably aside from the humor, my next favorite part of the movie was the monsters. The design was great. There was such a wide variety. There were references to famous horror movies, but there were also the right amount of ridiculous, of like enough to be making fun of it while still showing some of your favorite movies. I didn't write down, that's a lie. I took a photo of the board in which they have the list of, not all the monsters actually, there are more that we didn't see on the board. These are just
the ones they all bet.
Yep, so each department, like the chem department, demolitions, zoologies, they all wrote...
And the intern, he gets his own department.
He's actually, he's written in a different color ink. Anyway, so they all vote on what they think the monster is going to be. And I'm going to read all of them. There's werewolf, alien beast, mutants, wraiths, zombies, reptilius, clowns, witches, sexy witches, demons, hell-lord, angry molesting tree, giant snake, deadites, Kevin, mummy, the bride, page 2, the scarecrow folk, snowman, dragon bat, vampires, dismemberment goblins, sugar plum fairy, merman, the reanimated, unicorn, the Huron, Sasquatch / Wendigo / Yeti, dolls, the doctors, zombie redneck torture family, which is what we ended up with, jack-o'-lantern, giant, and twins.
Obviously, those are some specific references that they didn't need to elaborate on.
Some of them aren't. Some of them like
no, but like the twins.
yeah.
I really like how they just grouped together Sasquatch, Yeti, Wendigo as if they weren't their own separate things.
I do like it though, because from a betting standpoint, it makes sense. They're all like mountain-themed, vaguely humanoid, supernatural creatures. You're like, yeah, like a Sasquatch and a Yeti for the purposes of being murdered by them. It's about the same.
I think it's just funny.
Yeah.
I think they didn't know the settings. So they were like, all right.
So they didn't mention that the puzzle guy was on there. Fornicus, Lord of Bondage and Torture. Or
which they got pretty close to. One of them was like pretty investigating on the puzzle box.
He was solving it. He just didn't finish it.
Yeah. As soon as I saw the puzzle box, I was like, haha.
Yeah. So there was the girl, the ballerina girl. I don't know if she was on there, but if I had to guess, I would say Sugar Plum Fairy.
So I was debating whether or not Sugar Plum Fairy would be her because she had like not a prominent role, but she was noticeable.
Right. And she was a ballet dancer. And
I have a feeling that was supposed to be her.
So she must be that. They didn't mention Fornicus, but we know who he is. So they almost opened Fornicus. The bride was presumably the necklace, Anna Hutchinson with the necklace.
Yes. What was the bride, the like ghostly kind of looking one?
I don't know if we ever saw her.
Oh, okay.
And then Marty was going through the film. Who do you think that was?
Oh, geez, I already forget all the options.
There's so many that I don't.
Yeah, no, it's not worth reading it, but
yeah, honestly, that was what I was most invested in. Is what was on that film. It said it's possible it could have been Angry Molesting Tree, because Angry Molesting Tree is a reference to Evil Dead.
I was gonna say I feel like it's any movie one.
Yeah, but they're all movie references though. Like anyway.
Hold on, we bypassed we glazed over sexy witches.
Yeah. Oh yeah, so supposedly that's actually a straight up, it's not even just a funny joke, it's a straight up reference to a Buffy.
Oh,
joke.
That's funny.
Apparently they have a joke about sexy witches.
That's funny.
Yeah. So there's just horror references throughout the movie. Angry Molesting Tree, the Deadites are from Evil Dead. There's the Hellraiser puzzle creature, Sigourney Weaver. And I don't know if you picked up on this, but the zombie hand was from Evil Dead.
Yes.
Yep. Bruce Campbell got his hand cut off, and then a major villain of the movie was his hand trying to kill him.
Do you want to hear all the rest of the... Oh my god, there's so many!
Okay. Which ones haven't we heard?
Well, I'm on the Wikipedia page. Well, the like, you know, the wiki fun pages,
sure,
fan pages. So it says other monsters seen in the film behind the scenes. And there's a lot. Mm-hmm. So you can tell me when to stop, and I'm gonna cut this all out.
Okay.
American slow walking creepy girl, the ancient ones, balding menace, the blob, Boomer, based on the monster from Left 4 Dead.
Yeah, I mentioned those.
Bullhead Phantom, Cow Skull Giant, Charger, creature with pattern segments of armor on its head.
Okay, so it's just
Dark Spirit.
This isn't like an it doesn't elaborate. Is each one of these makes me more...
Flock of Killer Birds. That could actually be the film.
That one's interesting. There was this weird scorpion creature with like power saws on it.
Garden Gnome Boy.
All right, let's.
I'm sorry. I'm really invested in this.
We'll look at it later because actually, what?
Giant floating head. All right, I'll stop.
It just those aren't good names. We're gonna have to explain each one of them. So let's move on.
Okay.
One of the things we loved about this movie was the variety and creativity of the monsters.
Yes.
Why don't you tell me something you liked about the movie?
So I know we've kind of talked about this and I know it's kind of obvious, but I really enjoyed the subversive tropes and kind of the play on their roles within this. I mean, in the sacrifice. Because when they first started doing it, I thought it was going to be that they were kind of testing a horror movie. Mm-hmm. And they were like, I want to see what the characters would do and kind of play it out and kind of do that. And I thought, which also would be an interesting premise for a movie.
It would have been less interesting, but it would have been interesting.
Yeah. I think I prefer the way they did it, mm-hmm. but it could have gone either way for me. Mm-hmm. So I thought the subversive tropes were good. Mm-hmm. I thought it was really interesting. Some of it was pretty subtle in terms of, like, you had to know that Kurt was smart because he recommended a book for her to read. You know, you had to pay attention and hear that Jules was a pre-med major to know that she was actually pretty smart before becoming a dumb blonde. And even Kurt, nope, not Kurt.
Holden.
Nope. Marty like points out, he's like, when did Jules get so dumb? Yeah. Why is Kurt acting like an alpha male? He kind of does push it towards us, but in a way that made sense. Like, it was still really good, but I really liked the way they did it.
Yeah. So I heard an interesting take. I don't remember where I heard it, but each of the character assignments were wrong, supposedly.
Yeah.
Like, not to slut shame, but Dana slept with her college professor.
Who dumped her over an email.
Yeah, so that doesn't sound virgin to me, whereas Jules, we only see her having sex with one person. She never even mentions, like, an ex or anything. Marty is the only one who sees this, like, whole thing coming.
He's also the only one who actually wasn't... Well, I guess he was subversive because he sees what's happening. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I would argue that he was the scholar.
Yeah.
Or no, sorry. Chris Hemsworth was the scholar. He was the sociology major who studied like gender roles. Mm-hmm. Although I would argue Marty was also pretty intelligent there.
Yeah.
So it probably isn't a perfect 1-to-1, but that's a good, summary of the fact that even though the characters were pigeonholed, they were very, like, complex and interesting.
Oh, for sure. Mm-hmm. I just really liked it.
Apparently, there's, at one point in the movie, or throughout the movie, each person is called their, like, trope, or archetype. You know, when he pulls up with the bong, everyone calls Martin an idiot. Someone jokingly calls Jules a hoe. There's a scene where Chris Hemsworth says, and this is when he's under the influence of, like, the mind-enhancing drugs, he says some gross line about de-virginizing Dana, calling her a virgin. And,
ew.
I'm sure someone called Kurt a jock at one point, and then Holden, I remember, was called an egghead. Why don't we round up and say that was, that means scholar?
I think egghead's not a good...
No, but, I made it most of the way there.
You tried real hard.
The movie, the casting and the acting. First of all, the acting is outstanding. Everyone's the right amount of, like, funny, but, still seriously acting in the role.
Egghead does mean highly studious.
There we go. Boom. I accept your apology. And then...
Retract my previous statement.
The casting is pretty good because they hit Chris Hemsworth, who has kind of just always played the meathead role. I wouldn't have it any other way, but he was perfect as the jock. What's his name? Jesse Williams, I believe, was on Grey's Anatomy, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so
I think
as a doctor, so, he fits his intelligent role. Although that being said, this was early enough. I don't know if he had been in that by this point. This was in 2011. But if he wasn't in those movies...
He's also gorgeous.
Yeah, they all are.
He's been in Grey's Anatomy since 2005.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, they all have the terrific casting.
Yeah.
It's outstanding.
Casting is really good.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite parts of this movie, Ashley's doing some kind of a face. What are you
Sorry. I was looking at what Anna Hutchinson has been in before because I hadn't...
I recognize the name, but...
Yeah, which turns out she was in Power Rangers. Jungle Fury.
Don't think I know her from that, but
No, definitely not. I just was surprised.
So one of the parts of the movie that I really liked was the other countries' horror, because it really was an intelligent insight into what horror is like in different countries. Like, Japan was a lot more spiritual, ghosty. Sweden had some serious, like, I think there was a giant in it. And the only thing I can think of is the, like, Nazis versus Giants horror movie that came out from Sweden, or Scandinavia, rather. I don't know. It could have been Norway. But there was Rangoon, which I believe is now known as Yangon. It had a chopper, so that gave me serious Vietnam War vibes.
Yes.
Of course, a country from Indochina would have some serious Vietnam War style cultural horror.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't find the exact numbers on it, but the U.S. against Cambodia in the Vietnam War, at no point were we at war with Cambodia. This was a bombing campaign against a country we were not at war with. Dropped 214,000 tons of bombs on them. I don't remember the exact numbers, but it's something along the lines of, like, for 4 years, it was the equivalent of 200 bombs an hour, every hour, all day, every day. So, yeah, I can see why maybe that region might weight a little bit of horror towards American helicopters.
I get it.
Yeah. But
yeah, it was pretty interesting, though, seeing all of the different...
For sure, yeah.
You could really take the time and, like, actually study this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I feel like if I were to watch it again, I would notice different things every single time, which is what I like.
Yeah, it's great. Like,
yeah, it is really, honestly...
You can see them set up the bike super early.
Yeah.
And, like, they don't mention the bike at any point, but it's in a ton of shots.
Oh my god, when the bike crashes into the fake wall, I was like...
so funny.
I have something to pull up in the bad, though.
Oh,
for
okay.
that.
All right, we'll get into that in a moment.
Anyways, I have so much more to talk about still.
Yeah.
I want to talk about... Are you done?
Almost.
Okay.
So, what were you saying?
Well, are you done with that point?
Yes.
Okay. All right. My turn. I want to talk about the jump scares.
Yeah.
I thought they were good.
They were pretty good.
I mean, they weren't super scary. Like, I wasn't sitting there jumping in my seat, but I have no complaints about that. Most of them, if not all of them, were unanticipated. Mm-hmm. Like, they were good. Mm-hmm. I really appreciated... I think this is the first movie I've watched where, like, I felt like, dang, those are some good jump scares. Like, they did a good job with it. They understood horror. They clearly understood horror really, really well.
There was in the, like, cold open where it's just them kind of talking about menial office stuff. The title screen, the Cabin in the Woods, it goes bam!
Honestly, I think that was the scariest one because it was just so unanticipated. It was good. But all of the jump scares were.
When you see, what's his name, Martin peeing, and you see the zombie approaching from behind from so far away, and right as she gets close to him, Chris Hemsworth hits him. That was a jump scare I didn't see coming.
No, they were all good.
That was just a perfect example of rising tension and then a subversion of what you thought was going to happen.
Even, I think there might have been like one or two that were kind of anticipated, but they were still good.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how to describe it. I just really, really liked them all. Mm-hmm.
There was one scene, I don't know if you picked up on this, but when they're in the gas station, they were doing one of my least favorite shots, which is when the camera kind of moves to conceal where the character's turning to so that you're blind, even though they can totally see what's happening. So they were doing that, and then they locked into him in the center of the frame so you could see everything. And then something jumped out from around the corner.
Yeah.
It was a really good way of subverting kind of one of the more boring jump scares. Mm-hmm. What else did you like?
Oh, man. I think we've already brought it up, and I'm looking at my list going, dang, we already talked about that, and like all the monsters, the humor. I really liked how the world ends, and I also really liked how they chose how they died. Mm-hmm. And like we see all the monsters. I thought that was interesting. It was fun and creative. Like, you don't see see that in a horror movie. And we haven't seen it since. Because everyone looked and goes, dang, that's a good idea. And then they can't obviously recreate it because everyone goes, this is just a ripoff of Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah. I like that the horror was over the top at times. Yeah. It was just the right amount of being like, not even making fun of it, just poking fun at it. Like the basement that was just full of so many trinkets.
I love a good trinket.
The merman. Was like the merman and the unicorn were perfect. Like it was poking fun at all the sillier parts of horror, where like the ginger dead man, the leprechaun, stuff like that. The characters interact with each other in a way that like they're clearly friends. So the lines where they say like, yeah, that's because you're not getting laid, it really do stand out as weird. Yeah. When Kurt and Jules were like mind controlled on drugs, being way too horny, like you felt the discomfort from everyone in the room when they're talking about their sex life. Whereas in horror, most of the time people are like, yeah, haha, this is how teens talk. We love talking about doing it.
Yeah, that is true.
The painting was awesome. I have, by the way, tried to purchase the painting.
Why?
Because it's awesome. It's this horrible image. Like, apparently they got into it with the painter because the painter didn't want to paint something like that. And they're like,
hire a different painter.
Yeah, at a certain point, they're like, look, dude, we can either pay you or not. Just, here's what we want. If you're not okay with it, don't do it. And he said that, like, the painter tried to make the most absurd thing as possible, as like just like a fuck you.
Oh my God.
It was like this image of like...
It's this image of this bunch of people killing a deer.
It's like people killing a deer. It's dogs tearing it apart. Someone's like sawing off its head. In the background, there were like shadowy figures in the trees.
I know the painter was like, screw you guys, I'm gonna paint something
but
stupid.
It was awesome.
It fits so well.
It was so great. They're like, I've tried to purchase it, a copy at least, not the original prop. That's well out of my price range. Believe it or not, we don't actually make that much money doing this.
We don't make any money. We lose money.
We lose a lot of money doing this.
Between cost of watching the movies, cost of microphones and equipment.
The time we spend on that, we just throw that in the trash and we don't even think about it.
I'm not even going to bring up the time commitment. Oh, and also just the fact that we have to pay for it for you to listen to it.
The lawsuits from my sister and Ashley's dad, it adds up.
Long story short, you're welcome.
Yeah. We are currently broadcasting this from a bunker in Vietnam so that our creditors can't find us.
Anyways. Yeah, no. The painting fits so well, even though the artist was like, nope.
Yeah. So that's everything.
Is that everything you liked?
There was a lot I liked about this movie. That's everything I felt the need to point out.
I'm with you there.
Okay, so let's talk about the bad.
The bad. Not a lot there.
Me neither, yep. I have 4 bullet points.
Okay, I have 5, but I don't think some of them need to be brought up. And I honestly probably think there was something else I wanted to bring up in the bad, but I've already forgotten it.
Mm. My biggest complaint is that the CGI really wasn't great at the end. They used practical effects throughout the movie the entire time, and then when they had the giant snake monster and they couldn't avoid it, it just was lame.
They should have chose a different monster.
They could have done, because by the way, the dragon bat looked great. They could have just not had the snake, but they just chose monsters that had this awful CGI. They got around it by showing a lot of stuff through security cameras, so it was like already filtered. Yeah. So it didn't need to be great quality.
Which honestly was a really smart way to do it.
It's so clever.
Yeah.
But then they had some where they felt the need to focus the camera on it, and it was boring. Like the ghost too was good.
The ghost was phenomenal. Yeah. I don't understand how the ghost and the Japanese spirit. Yeah. I don't understand how they did that and then just kind of like, we've run out of money.
Yeah.
Do what you can on this budget.
It was a little frustrating to see the movie make it that far with absolutely no complaints at all. And then it did that. the lighting at times, it was pretty dark. I will say that they did, unlike a lot of movies, they did a good job of being aware that it was poorly lit. Like, the zombie I mentioned sneaking up on Martin while he was peeing. That was a really dark scene. You couldn't see anything behind him, but the zombie was wearing all white. So you could see her.
Yeah. When
she stepped in the shadows, you couldn't. But when she would step back out, you could see her, even though she wasn't in focus. So that was at least, the knock is that they didn't have a Hollywood budget on this. And they did a good job with what they had.
Do you know what the budget was?
Not off the top of my head.
I'm very curious with the amount of monsters they had, what the budget was, because, like, honest to God, I feel like it was a lot of money.
Oh, 30 million. Wow. Guess I was wrong. Well, the MGM at the time was going through a lot of financial trouble, so I don't know. Probably the final number doesn't tell the whole story.
Yes, I think you're right there.
I have to imagine there was a lot of times where they asked for, like, a little bit more and got shut down. But 30 million is about 29 million more than I was expecting.
Speaking of zombies, I thought the zombie family was kind of lame. Compared to all the other monsters we see, they are lame.
Yeah.
The way they kind of rise out of the ground and kind of some of the characteristics they put on them to kill them was interesting, but overall, they were meh for me. This is me trying to find a complaint about this movie.
I had to struggle with this. I will say, though, that if it were a more interesting monster, then the kind of subplot of, not even subplot, what do you call that? Like secondary? Yeah. The plot of them orchestrating this would have felt unnecessary. If it was interesting enough to be on its own, it would have almost been a distraction from the fact that they're being sacrificed. Yeah,
that's true. That's a good point, and I understand that.
Yeah.
Listen, and I guess this is more of a point from perspective of, like, taking the two plots separately. In the context of that plot, they were meh. But in the context of whole, it makes sense why they were there. Mm-hmm. That being said, also, I guess, like, there's a lot of action all at once. And if you were watching them separately, like, i.e. the subplot of just the friends in the cabin, would have been, I think, too much action all at once. And it probably would have ended up being slower.
Mm-hmm.
But with all the action also going on with the base, it kind of felt like that was rushed a little bit with everything that was happening between all the killings and stuff like that. And this is me being really nitpicky because it really wasn't that bad.
Mm-hmm.
But it definitely, overall, it was a pretty good pace, but it definitely, in some scenes, felt a little rushed.
Mm-hmm. My last complaint about this movie is just towards the end, they lean a little heavy on the one-liners.
Yeah.
And one or two would have been fine because that's this whole movie is a little over the top, but enough that it's entertaining, which is what Evil Dead was.
Yeah.
And that would have been fine, but at a certain point, they'd done like 3 or 4 in a row, and I was just ready for them to not do that anymore.
Okay, I remembered what I wanted to say.
Okay.
And the final scene where she has the gun to Marty,
mm-hmm. and
she's like getting ready to pull the trigger. She hesitates.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she doesn't pull it right away. I'm sorry. If you would be the fool, don't deny it.
No, I considered a bit for this where we assigned roles, and I was going to call myself the fool. Don't worry. I'm not offended by it.
If I was the final girl,
mm-hmm.
I would kill you. I'm sorry.
I mean, I'm gonna die. It's a sold thing. Like, I will either die with everyone or alone. I would appreciate the choice in the matter, and I understand why he was frustrated, but also I'm on her side. Like, it.
And again, if the roles were reversed, where you were holding a gun to me and I had to be the one to die, I'd be like, listen, it's been a good run.
Yeah.
Like, pull the freaking trigger.
Man, I don't want to die here, but I can't fault you for making this decision.
Right. I mean, it was stupid that she hesitated, and also, I was pretty annoyed that he didn't die But also it's kind of nice that they both kind of lived together. It was like, ooh. And then she was like, I wasn't going to shoot you. BS. She was going to shoot him.
Yeah, I think she was.
If she had a second longer.
I think that was just a friend thing.
Yeah.
Just like he also, wasn't really sorry about the werewolf because, you know, she would have shot him otherwise. Like,
right. Listen, if we were sitting there and I almost killed you.
Sorry, I almost killed you. Yeah, even if you would do it again.
I would have been like, listen, I was gonna kill you, but I'm sorry. Like, I am sorry about it.
Yeah.
I'm straight up. I can't.
Is this the episode that Horror Sucks ends because Ashley and I realized that we'd kill each other in literally an instant?
It makes sense to kill each other. There's no argument. We're not arguing with each other saying, I can't believe you would kill me. We're both saying yes.
Yes.
That was the right choice.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the spooky.
Okay.
The spooky.
So, this movie's not super scary, but one thing I did notice to enhance the spook factor, there's not really a soundtrack to this movie. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, it's more of like a thought that I just like at the end of the movie, they started playing music and I was like, wait a minute. There hasn't really been music throughout this kind of movie to enhance, for you to really focus on the monsters and the action because it is so action packed. And I think that's why there's not really that much of a background music to it. I think it was kind of spooky.
There were some scenes, but I can only think of build-ups to jump scares that there was music to it. And even then it wasn't like when you hear the music get loud, you know it's going to be a jump scare. It would build up in a tense moment and then kind of let off, and then it would build up, let off, build up, jump scare. It
was done really well. Mm-hmm. But, like, to be honest, it was super unnoticeable, so it kind of made it scarier for me. Mm-hmm. Versus these other movies that don't have much plot. They use a background music to draw out things to be a longer movie.
Mm-hmm. I know I've said this in a previous episode, but if we have any new listeners, do you know what they call the sound that is made during a jump scare when the music just makes that awful noise? It's like, dun dun!
No, I forget.
It's called the sting.
The sting.
It's pretty cool, right?
That is pretty neat.
Matches the mood.
For sure.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Good word choice. I mean, the movie wasn't scary.
No.
I've only seen a couple of, like, truly scary movies. By the way, one of them was Hereditary.
Ooh, okay.
Hereditary's fucking terrifying. I saw it in theaters.
Oh my god.
Kate and I saw it in theaters.
You got Kate to go see Hereditary?
Yeah, Kate is
Was that one of your free horror movie coupons?
No, actually, I got that one for free.
Wow!
Kate is just terrified of horror, and somehow I convinced her to see what is truly the scariest movie I've ever seen in my life.
Well, you know what I'm doing tomorrow at 10 a.m.?
Watching Hereditary? You should, yeah. Or actually, no. You should watch it alone in the dark at 10.
I'm not going to do that.
You should.
I'm not.
This movie specifically. Oh, wait. Fiona says Hereditary?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, just for my own enjoyment.
Fun. Okay. Christ, I thought Fiona suggested.
Listen, if I told her that we should watch Hereditary and it's not scary, I think she would kill me.
Yeah, she would. And I would side by her.
I can't wait for her to listen to this.
Yeah. Do you have, I don't think it's going to be released by the time you record it.
True.
Do you guys have a movie in mind yet?
No, I gotta, she's away this weekend, so I'll wait till she gets back and we can talk about it.
Do you have any that you're leaning towards?
No, because I was going to ask you what's not super scary. We could have done this movie, actually.
Yeah, this would have been a good movie.
I was thinking, I was kind of thinking Jennifer's Body.
Ooh, that would have been a good one, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not sure. And
you know what? I think she'd like that. I
think she would too. It's a good movie.
Mm-hmm. Well, anyway, as I was saying, this movie's not that scary. It's, generally pretty spooky, but there's not a lot of moments where you jump. They handle the jump scares well, though. They're not cheesy. They're always unexpected, at least. And the one scene that I would highlight as spooky is when they hit the purge button, everyone kind of freezes and you hear the elevators go. And then you hear, like, 8 elevator dings at the exact same time, and just nightmare hell breaks loose. And just that ding of 8 of them was awesome. It's pretty spooky.
I agree. I like it.
So just some overall thoughts on the movie. It's a lot like the original Scream. It deconstructs the horror genre while being able to still be a good horror movie. It's really funny, created by a couple of talented guys, acting's outstanding. This isn't just a good movie, this is like one of the best horror movies out there.
I was going to say, this is definitely going in my top 5.
This is like on par with
It's
Scream.
not in your top 5, by the way.
It isn't just because I've seen a lot of really good movies.
I don't know. It's good. I really, really was happy after watching it.
How many of my top 5 have you seen?
What's in your top 5 again?
The Shining, Alien, The Thing, Scream,
And Jaws.
Halloween, I think.
No, Halloween is not in your
Okay,
top
Jaws
3.
then.
It's Jaws. I've seen 4.
Oh, okay. Well, what haven't you seen then? The Thing?
Yeah, I have seen half of The Thing.
Have you seen The Shining?
Yeah, of course I've
Okay.
seen The Shining.
Yeah, you're wearing a Stephen King book.
What do you mean?
She has a Stephen King shirt on right now.
I have the best shirt.
It
and
literally just says based on the novel by Stephen King.
It's
but there's
so freaking
But
funny.
there's nothing on it except that. So
Yeah,
so we're forced to conclude that she is based on the novel by Stephen King.
Listen, I went out tonight to a Greek festival. 3 people commented on it. One person did bring up, so he's like, "So you're a novel based
Yeah.
on Stephen King?" Yes. All right, I like it. Another person asked me about Stephen King and what they should read and blah blah blah. And then,
What'd you say? What's your number one Stephen King book?
oh, my number 1 Stephen King. Ooh, it's a tie.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tie between 11/22/63, which is the time travel.
Yeah, the JFK one. Yeah.
JFK one, yes. And this is combined with his son, but Sleeping Beauties is really, really good.
Have you read Carrie?
I haven't.
Ooh, you
It's
should.
it's on my list. Carrie and Misery.
I honestly think Carrie's the best one.
I haven't read Carrie. Carrie and Misery are on my list. I still need to finish the Dark Tower series. I've got half of the last book left, and it's currently sitting in my library because I need to rent it. But
Have you seen Thinner?
yeah,
Or Red Thinner.
I haven't read Thinner. We did watch the movie together.
Thinner was really good. Thinner was like
Thinner's short, right?
Yeah. But it was so. It's just such a clever book because the guilt is literally eating him alive with the curse. So
Yeah.
he's getting thinner.
Because he feels so guilty.
Yeah, like.
We watched the movie, Cardi.
Yeah,
I know the
but
plot.
well, the movie was shitty because they're like, look how thin he is, and it's clearly just a skinny guy sucking in his
know.
gut. And I'm like, oh yeah, man. Real. That movie, I would, if I could have any movie remade, I would love to see Thinner remade with modern special effects.
Ooh.
Imagine, I don't know why this name came to mind, but just imagine Robert Downey Jr. as the he wouldn't look good fat.
No.
He would look like fat Robert Downey Jr.
You know who actually might be pretty good in that role?
Christian Bale, because he's the only guy willing to gain 200 pounds and then lose 300.
Fair. But no, I was thinking, what's his face from It?
Oh.
Peter Skarsgård.
Oh, I thought you were saying Tim Curry. Peter Skarsgård would be good, yeah.
Tim Curry would be hilarious, though. No, but I think Peter Skarsgård would actually be a good Thinner character.
I think he would be, yeah.
Yeah, I think if we're making a good movie, that's who I would cast.
My issue with Peter Skarsgård is just that he and this is probably because I've only ever seen him in It.
Yeah.
It's just a little over the top spooky.
He's a caricature more than an actor, but
I bet if I saw
I've seen him in something else. Was he
Barbarian? He's in Barbarian.
Oh, he's in Barbarian.
Yeah,
I think,
maybe I'll. When I see
he was
him
also in
Barbarian.
Castle Rock.
Yeah,
which he was pretty good in.
Maybe I'll change my mind once I see him in more stuff. But it just seems a little too like, look how spooky this clown man is, and I'm like, yeah, it's spooky.
Is his name not Peter? Oh, it's Alex. I meant to say Alex Skarsgård.
Are you sure? Are we thinking of Peter Sarsgaard?
I think we are.
Oh boy.
You're cross confusing words.
Yes. So wait a minute.
I know.
You are wrong, actually. It's
not Alex,
Bill
it's Bill.
Skarsgård. Holy shit. We are 1 for 3, and it's only because I looked it up on the third try.
I started saying Peter, and I was like, that's also Peter Sarsgaard. We just did that movie. And then I was like, oh, I should look this up. I wanted to see what else he was in, because I saw him in something else.
We were.
Oh, he was in Eternals.
Okay, we were not.
And he was in Castle Rock.
We are not far away from saying Stellan Skarsgård. Like, I need you to understand. I loved Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I was like one misspeak away from being like, fuck it. That old dude.
Did I ever tell you how
Also
I saw...
Dune. Sorry, he was also in Dune. I just wanted to say that.
Oh, okay, thank you. Did I ever tell you how I saw a Girl with the Dragon Tattoo? And that I saw it in theaters?
Hang on, did you... Oh, I see. I thought you said you saw a girl that had a dragon tattoo. And I was like, that's not interesting. Did you at least see it while watching a girl with a dragon tattoo?
No, I saw a Girl with the Dragon Tattoo in theaters because I went with my mom's cousin and her daughter and her 2 stepdaughters with her and her now husband. And she was like, oh, it's rated R, but it's not that bad.
It was that bad.
I was 12.
It was that bad.
I'm not going to lie. It was pretty scarring.
Have you seen it since being 12?
God, no.
You should, because it's good.
I'm glad you took my face of going, because I was going to cut in and be like, I appreciate this deep insight into this movie. I cannot see past the traumatic scenes that are in that movie.
Yeah, it's upsetting.
If you are sensitive, do not watch Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Yeah, let's see. If you like women not being tortured, animals,
not
men,
being tortured,
people of Scandinavian descent, rich people
in general,
immigrants, foreigners, if you like any of those or even don't hate any of those, maybe you shouldn't watch this movie.
It's a graphic movie. I will leave it at that. But imagine being 12.
Yeah,
watching that.
That would be seriously upsetting.
My cousin's daughter was right next to me, and the rest of us are kind of like looking away.
There's a long graphic rape scene of Rooney Mara.
Correct.
It's
my cousin's
like
daughter. Bless
they
her
start
heart,
crying.
she watched the whole thing. She did not avert her eyes, and then after we left the movie, and she was like, "Yup, I watched it straight through." And we're like, she's a year older than me, but it was just like kind of funny, her reaction to it, but also very, very traumatizing.
Yeah.
I don't think my parents really realized that actually was that traumatizing for me at that time. But here I am, living the dream.
Okay, so
anyways,
what were we talking about? Cabin in the Woods?
Yeah, I guess so. Are we done?
I think we're done.
We've talked about all the spooky stuff. I think our divulge was pretty natural.
Yeah, usually we go into more depth for overall, but honestly, the fact that most of this episode is talking about the good represents the overall thoughts on it.
Overall thought it's good.
Our thoughts were 90% good, 10%, not even 10%, 5% bad, because we were looking to find something bad about it.
We really had to hunt it down.
Yeah. This was a great movie. Can't recommend it enough. All-time great.
Yeah. I can't believe it's not in your top 5 the way you were talking about it right now.
The competition is insane. Scream, The Thing, The Shining, Jaws, and then another one that I don't remember. Halloween. Those are all-time
great. Is Jaws a horror movie?
I would argue it is.
Okay.
It follows the slasher formula.
Okay.
But also, if I had to replace it, I would replace it with Alien.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Alien's on your list. Halloween is not on your list.
Is it? Maybe I'm missing them. But
Alien's on your list.
I cannot stress enough just how neck and neck. So
basically, this is like number 6.
It's probably lower, but it's like tied for second or third. So technically, when 8 people,
if it's tied for second, it makes it the one below. I don't know what you mean.
I'm saying they're all tied for second, and then my complex tiebreaker thing gives it that. And it obviously depends on the day, because I rated Halloween differently than Alien depending on the day. So
all right, I don't need to get it. Oh, did I tell you that Walmart has Halloween shirts on sale?
Do they?
It's $8 for like a Michael Myers shirt with like Halloween going. Honestly,
Okay.
I bought it. Like, it's a good shirt.
All right.
I was very excited.
Shoot. You know what?
I also just bought my Camp Crystal Lake counselor shirt.
Nice. Ashley and I bought Halloween Ends themed energy drinks, which supposedly contain far more caffeine than
I forgot about those.
You're supposed to be able to buy. But since we didn't drink it, we'll save it for another episode.
Oh, we're going to save it for the episode we do on Halloween.
You're right. Yep, you're right.
I feel like we need to be in a caffeine manic for that.
Yeah, we need to be unhinged.
Okay, anyways.
It won't be interesting otherwise.
No. I do have a funny story to talk to you about pipes.
Okay.
Because we brought it up earlier. So I had a friend in college who had a boyfriend who was a stoner, and it was her birthday, and he bought her this... He went to a glass shop earlier that day and he saw this really cute thing with a flower in it. So he bought it for her birthday. Do you want to know what it was?
A pipe?
It was a pipe, but do you want to know what the pipe was for?
It
was not for weed. It was for crack.
Yeah.
It was a crack pipe that he bought for her because it had a flower in it.
Crack pipes are tricky because they're like kind of just a glass tube with a ball at the end.
Yeah.
It looks like a vase, except smaller.
Yes.
You could accidentally buy a crack pipe for someone. That's a lot more understandable than buying.
But it was so funny. Because he bought two. Okay, imagine buying one crack pipe. Now imagine buying two crack pipes.
One for you and one for your friend. Yeah, for the germaphobe who's
they
also
were
addicted to
both
crack.
for her.
Yeah. His and hers crack pipes.
Anyways.
Apparently they're big in gas stations. I've never actually seen one, but
interesting.
Apparently it's like those rose in a bottle things, and it's like, sure hope you don't take out the rose, put some crack in this bad boy, and then light it.
That's pretty funny.
It's like when they sell a bong, and they're like, yes, for tobacco use only. It's like, okay, dude.
All right.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting these rolling papers for, too.
So next week... we're going to be watching a movie.
I won't be there, unfortunately. I will be in Dallas.
That being said, we're going to have guest star, super fan, friend of the pod, my dear friend Fiona, who is truly a super fan of the pod.
You guys are going to have to talk about the Oak.
Oh, for sure. We used to work together at a brewery.
We used to. Me,
Carter also,
Ashley, Fiona, and our friend Kate, who we mentioned,
and
all
my
used to
other
work.
friend Mia.
Yes.
We all used to work there, but also Carter and I and Fiona and Mia only overlap one day.
Yeah.
Which is genuinely
hilarious.
funny. I got my job because Carter decided to quit.
Yes.
Anyway, so I will be joined by Fiona next week. We'll be watching something not so scary, probably Jennifer's Body, because I'm going to convince her to watch that one.
But yeah, Fiona's not huge into horror, so we'll see what Fiona
She
wants.
likes to listen to our podcast.
Yeah.
And that's her horror film.
Which appears to be our audience is quickly becoming people who don't want to watch horror.
I mean, we do give all the spoilers.
Accept it. It's better than like kids who aren't allowed to watch horror. That's because that's something that's hard to work around, trying to be kid appropriate. Wow.
We've never been kid appropriate.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's insanely difficult. But
anyways, so we'll be doing that. Mm-hmm. Stay tuned for that. Please make sure to rate, review, and subscribe the show. Also, you can find us on Instagram at Horror Sucks Podcast. And feel free to send us any recommendations or what you thought of the episode there, or to our email, horrorsuckspodcast@gmail.com. Anyways, thank you for listening, and
stay spooky.
Horror Sucks is brought to you by Wild Thing Media.
This time when you looked at me, I knew what to do. I didn't have to panic. Anyway,
I'm
stay
so
spooky.
glad.
Horror Sucks is brought to you. No, go ahead.
Horror Sucks is brought to you by Wild Thing Media. Yeah, music and production done by me, and editing done by Carter. Thanks for listening.